Hey travel fam, it's Darian and welcome back to I Need Travel Therapy. Today we've got a great show for you. We're going to be talking to Hannah and Ryley about their experience renovating an Airstream, as well as their experience traveling and going to California. A little bit about Ryley and Hannah. They're both physical therapists who have recently transitioned from the travel therapy life to permanent positions in Northern California. They live in a travel trailer with their dog and love to travel to new places to hike and explore on weekends. Let's get started with this episode. Hey, Hannah and Ryley, welcome to the show.
Hi,
Hi.
thanks.
We're so excited to have you guys on today to talk about. You guys have lots of cool experiences, so it was hard to narrow down topics, but we got a couple of really great ones for everybody. So, to start off, can you tell us a little bit about yourselves and your PT backgrounds?
Sure. We both went to the same school. We went to Husson University in Bangor, Maine. That's actually where we met. And we graduated from there in 2018. I took an outpatient job, which worked mostly through Med B. So it was kind of like home health. I worked in like retirement facility and saw a lot of older adults. And I got to work all the way up to like dementia care, basically with these same people for a year.
Wow.
And then I don't know if you want to talk about what you did for that year.
Well, when we were studying for boards, I worked in an outpatient clinic that was run by one of my CIs. So I did that for a couple months. And then when we passed boards, I got a job in a SNF, and I've been working in skilled nursing ever since. Well, except for once we started traveling, because once we started traveling, I had one job that was more like outpatient Med B based. But yeah,
Okay.
all my other jobs so far have been working in a SNF.
Yeah,
Okay.
we started
It's in,
started traveling. I think it was 2 years ago. So
okay.
mostly skilled nursing, and I had one outpatient job for a little while. So we've had
Okay.
kind of a variety, but mostly skilled
Yeah.
nursing.
Yeah. It's interesting you said that you were working while you were studying for boards. A lot of people ask about doing that. Were you working as a PT in a clinic?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
You were.
Maine lets you work on a temporary license with a PT supervising you. So
Okay.
I started a little bit before Riley, but we both worked while we studied for boards and planned our wedding. I don't
Oh
suggest
my
doing both of those at the
God.
same time, but it's definitely, if you have a state that lets you, it's totally doable to work while you study for boards. And I found it like really helpful because what we were studying, we were able to like put into practice, so it made it a
Wow.
little bit easier. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was good.
Yeah. Okay, that's awesome to hear. I get asked about that a lot. And in travel, as far as our travel jobs that we have, most of them want somebody that's, past the boards already. I think it's a little bit
Hmm.
different in different states. And so that's awesome to hear that you guys were able to do that and that it was a good experience. I've heard some people before do it and then they get a little overwhelmed with studying and working, but it makes a lot of sense. Like putting what you're studying to practice, is pretty
Hmm.
cool. So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it just
Um,
depends on the kind of person you are, though. Like some people are they really like to go hard and
yeah.
study, and that's all they want to do. I say if you're that kind of person, definitely don't work while you're studying for boards.
Yes. So what made you guys want to decide to travel do travel PT if I could spit it out today, right?
Um, I've just always been like a traveler. I love going new places and doing new things. And I think from the moment I started PT school and found out that you can travel and do physical therapy at the same time, I was like, sign me up. That's what I want to do. Um, and then the pay was so much better too with the student loans.
Hmm.
Luckily, Riley doesn't have any student loans, but I have enough for both of us. So it definitely, definitely that was an appeal of it too. So being able to go new places and still do your job is like a really cool thing. And it
Hmm.
was just too hard to pass up.
For sure. Okay.
Mhm.
I guess speaking about the pay a little bit, Did you notice, like, when you were looking at maybe permanent jobs and that type of thing as well, was the travel pay? A lot of times people will say it's like almost double what you'd make as a permanent employee as a new grad. Does that seem pretty accurate, or maybe like, I don't know, 30% more or something like that? But it was substantial, right?
It's double. For us,
Yeah.
it was pretty much exactly double.
Well, coming from Maine, because
Yeah,
Maine,
new grads in Maine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it ended up being double what we were making when we started. But not every job. When we first started travel PT, it wasn't quite double. It was probably like 75% of that. But it was, yeah,
Okay.
it was enough to make it a pretty easy decision for it to be worth it to
Yeah.
pack everything up and go wherever we could.
Yeah. Okay, so starting out in Maine, where you guys were, which happens to be one of my favorite states, I think it is so beautiful. I'm from
Nice.
Minnesota originally, and so it's
Oh.
like kind of a Minnesota vibe, but you're by the ocean,
Yeah.
so it's better, right?
Yes.
But where did you guys decide to take your first assignments then? Was it in Maine or?
No, we left Maine. We both had permanent jobs there, which we both loved lots, which was it made it hard to decide to leave. Even still with all the jobs I've had, the job I had in Maine was like, a dream job. And so that was hard, but we decided to go to Georgia because we were going to renovate an Airstream to live in, and my parents live there, and they have like a big house with a big yard, and my dad has like tons of tools. So we thought that was like the perfect place to go because we've never done anything like that before. So we definitely needed, the tools and the knowledge that my dad had. So we went to Georgia first, and that's where we started doing our travel assignments.
Okay. And I remember you guys telling me a story about like your guys' commute was not ideal in Georgia. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we had this plan to move to Georgia, and then once we got there, there would be a lot more campers and whatever else available for us to get for travel. So we ended up finding an Airstream within our first month. Or second month.
I think it was the second month we were there.
Second month we were there. So we were living with her parents first, and that was going from the southeast of Atlanta, and we were both commuting to the northwest side of Atlanta. So we are going straight through, or kind of around. If anyone knows Georgia traffic, then we went around 295?
Spaghetti Junction, basically, is what they call it. Yeah, it's like either way. You can take the bypass or go straight through, and both ways were terrible. There's no escaping it.
Right. We were going around the perimeter in Georgia, and our commute was like, it would range anywhere from an hour and 20 minutes to 2 hours and 40 minutes. And I looked it up once, and we were basically going through one of the 5 worst commutes in the country because we're going through Atlanta traffic at 6:30 a.m. So it was we learned a lot from that, and luckily after we did that for 2 or 3 weeks, we were able to move into Hannah's parents' pop-up camper and get to a campground that was about an hour away from our jobs instead of 1.5 to 3 hours away.
Yeah, and we were like on the other side. It was North Georgia, so we were able to come down, and we didn't have to go through Atlanta. Yeah. I remember like being in the car one day and looking over, and there's this girl like sitting in traffic, scrolling on her phone, like look on Instagram, and I just thought, we're not in Kansas anymore. Like, this is not the same. This is not the same thing that we've been used to. Like, people are so used to this traffic in Atlanta that they're like surfing the internet, driving their vehicles on the way to work. It was definitely very different.
Yeah.
Don't recommend.
No, thank you. There's something different about driving. That's something different about driving through traffic like that. Like, if I had to drive an hour to work, but it was like on country roads or something, I'm down for that. But I think driving and the stop and go, it just kind of kills your soul a little bit,
It does. Because it's stressful. You can't just relax. And like, if you're listening to music or a podcast or something and you're just driving through the country, it's nice. But when you're in traffic, it's just, it's stressful.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm glad you guys brought up the Airstream because that's definitely a topic that we wanted to talk to you about today. So where did the idea of getting an Airstream originally come from? Because that's kind of the coolest version, I think, of the RV, right?
Yeah. Um, Well, actually, when we first started, so we were in Maine planning for traveling, and we were thinking about, we were doing a lot of research. Like some people rent apartments that are pre-furnished, and one thing for us is we have a dog. So, and he's a really big dog. So, a lot of places we were thinking it's probably hard to find a place that's pre-furnished and allows pets, and not only pets, allows a dog over 30 pounds. So, I was on Instagram and I saw one of my friends from college, him and his wife actually did a school bus, which they call schoolies. And we were looking into that for a long time. And Riley's parents own a car dealership, and the mechanic there was like, don't do a school bus if you're staying for 3 months at a time. Diesel engines have to consistently run. So then we switched over to the idea of a camper. And I'm just very I love all things vintage. I have a very old soul. One day I want to have an old house and renovate it. I'm really into that. So we started looking at Airstreams, and we thought those are a good idea. They hold their value and they're really cool and funky. So that's what we decided to do. Yeah, it was definitely a fun experience. I don't know if you want to touch on the renovation process.
Yeah, I mean, so we ended up deciding on an Airstream because they usually last the longest. They were built the best, anywhere from the 70s to the 90s. And then if you go any newer than that, then they're pretty outrageously expensive. So that wasn't what we were trying to do, was buy a new one. Or a newer one, which 30 years for an Airstream is still considered new for an Airstream. But we got one in 1977, and it was $5,000, and it was livable when we bought it, but it wouldn't have been very comfortable when we bought it. The guy that we bought it from was where was that? Indiana?
It was in Kentucky, which is where I went to my undergrad. So I was like, oh, yay, we get to go back to Kentucky, pick up this camper.
Yeah.
We drove 8 or 9 hours to get it and brought it back. We didn't get back until 5 a.m., I think. So that's another crazy story in itself. And then we started the renovation process. We knew we were going to do a half renovation, where you replace what needs to be fixed just to make it livable. A lot of people will do a full renovation, full gut. So they take everything out, replace the insulation and floors and all of that. But we wanted to be going to different states and traveling. So we thought that a full renovation would take too long, and we didn't want to be tied down in case one of our travel contracts ended, and then we'd have to be finding new jobs while staying in the same place. We knew we wanted to kind of be quick about the renovation process and make it livable. So we did that. We replaced some of the floors. We replaced, some of the lighting. We did the fridge and all that stuff. Just the bare minimum, and updated it with good materials and everything to make it full-time livable. So, cause campers aren't really meant to be full-time livable, but there's things you can do to them to help it out and make it more durable and comfortable. So that's what we did.
Yeah.
And it was really fun. It took us just about 6 months. My first travel contract ended in the middle of it, and it worked out really good because I was working on it. We were both working on it on the weekends for the most part, and then doing little things after work for that 6 months. But then for the first 3 months, and then the last 3 months, I had a different job where I worked 4 days a week. I had Tuesdays off, so I could stay home all Tuesday and get a lot of work done on it then. So it was pretty ideal to be working on it through my second job. I had a lot of extra time, so it was good. We were making less money, but we were accomplishing our goals still.
Yeah, probably saving money in the long run, because traveling with an Airstream and being able to camp instead of renting furnished places probably, makes a substantial amount of difference. Was this something you guys like, did you guys grow up? I know that you said, Hannah, that you have interest in like renovating a house one day, but is this something that you guys did growing up, or was this like a totally new project where you had to kind of learn how to do absolutely everything?
I would say, I mean, my dad is always like fixing things, and I'm the oldest, so I have younger brothers, but my dad was always very much like teaching me how to fix things and do things myself. So when I left the house, I wasn't dependent on anyone, which I'm really grateful for. And I did a lot of like mission trips where I like helped re-roof houses and stuff, but never like renovating a full-on house. Or like a camper. So, and Ryley's parents, I don't think really either did anything like that. So
I didn't have any experience with it. I just learned from reading articles online and YouTube and just doing my best.
So what are some of the advantages that you've found since living in an Airstream?
I think living tiny, I guess as people call it, I guess that's the like term for it now. It's definitely helped us to realize that we don't need a lot of the stuff that we thought we needed when we were living in a normal apartment. Cause we've always lived in like apartments and stuff. We haven't had a house yet. But also with like renovating it ourselves, we learned how to fix things when they break, which I think is something that our generation doesn't really know a lot of, but I mean, I guess kind of starting now, people are doing a lot of DIY stuff, so that's cool. But we've learned how to like fix things when they break, and we're able to move our house with us. So Rubius, our dog, he always has his own home. He's never stressed out when we move. We have our own bed, you know, that we sleep on. It's ours. No one else sleeps on it. You know, so we have everything that we need with us, and we can bring it with us, which is really awesome.
Yeah. For sure. I know having your own space, especially when you're traveling, doing all these assignments, everything outside of your world is changing, but then you kind of have this like place that's yours still, which is really special, I think. Do you guys generally, like when you're traveling, finding a new assignment, is finding a campground like a big piece of taking a new assignment? Is it challenging finding places to kind of park your RV while you're traveling?
I'd say that was probably the most difficult part of doing travel, was to find 2 travel jobs that were close enough together, and then a campground where we could live that was as close to halfway in between as we could. So like I said, at our first assignments, we were living with her parents until we moved into a pop-up camper. And that commute was anywhere from, we ended up at a campground that was about an hour away for each of us. And then our first assignments where we were living in the Airstream was in Texas. So we finished the renovation and then both found travel jobs in Texas. Actually, I found a travel job in Texas first. And then we decided to move there because it was in the Amarillo, Texas area. So we thought, okay, that's a decent enough sized place, so we'll find more jobs. We moved there at a campground that was $400 a night, which in hindsight is $400 a month. $400 a month, which in hindsight is great.
Okay.
Yeah,
Miss that Texas economy.
Yeah. So that was really close to my assignment. That was 15 minutes away from my job. And it took Hannah 3 weeks to find a job once we moved there. And her job was actually just through the same company that I was working for anyway. They did up a travel contract with her and sent her to the 2 or 3 other buildings that was all of this one company. So we kind of made it work there, which was nice. We were at least both employed and working mostly full time, but then COVID hit when we were in Texas. So we were a little bit worried about our jobs, like I'm sure most people were. Luckily, we both kept them throughout the start of the pandemic, last March. And I think we were only in Texas for 5 months. It felt like a much longer time.
It felt like forever.
Watching what was going on with COVID and reading about all of it. And, changes were going on day to day in our buildings. Here's different guidelines. Here's different stuff to wear. Here's different things to do. So it felt like a really long time in Texas, but we both had good stable jobs there. But we decided we'd go to California because there hopefully would be more job availability, and we'd be able to live closer because Hannah's jobs, although she had a few places she could go to, they were all over an hour away.
I was basically driving the entire panhandle of Texas like every day.
Yeah.
But it was better than the Atlanta, it was just me and the cows and the windmill, so it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
But I think the hardest part for us finding campgrounds is we're both PTs, so finding 2 travel contracts that are for PTs, because I've heard like PT, OT couples typically have a little bit easier of a time, or like, SLP, PT, like different, what's it called? Disciplines have an easier time when you're going together, but when you're the same discipline, it's kind of hard to find 2 jobs close together. And then finding a campground, we always try to keep the commute equal for both of us, but so that's definitely the hard part, is finding a campground. Finding a campground that will let you have an older camper, which luckily now we have upgraded to a newer camper so that we can travel longer.
That factored into the decision because we were led into one campground for about 3 weeks when we moved to California, and then they kicked us out, and we think it's probably because our camper was 50 years old, but it doesn't look 50 years old. It looks 30 years old.
It looks like a super cute hipster vintage Airstream.
But
I don't know what the problem was.
A big appeal to going to California was the job availability was better here, and we could hopefully find a campground in between 2 jobs, because that was what we were finding to be the most difficult part about planning our travel placements was, okay, we need to have these 2 jobs close together, but also find a safe and affordable campground, because there's plenty of campgrounds in between 2 jobs in California, but you might pay $2,100 a month or $1,800 a month, and that's like renting an apartment. So we were like, what's the point of traveling in a camper if we're going to pay for apartment prices?
Yeah, it can get pricey, like the Bay Area in California. We have some friends that travel in like the Pacific Northwest, and those campgrounds are super pricey. So if you're in the middle of nowhere, like where we were in Texas, it can be really cheap and save you lots of money. Luckily, where we are in Northern California right now, we're in a rural area, so it's affordable again. But when we were near the Bay Area, it was like, this is how much it is for a campground? Holy cow. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. That blows my mind. I had no idea that they would charge $2,100. Like, I obviously, I mean, I don't know if you're like in San Francisco or something, like maybe, but I mean, that's like, again, an apartment rent price. That's wild.
I'd rather just live in the city in an apartment.
You can really only get close to San Francisco without paying $2,000.
Yeah.
Crazy. Do they like set you up like you just have like a sweet spot, or is it just like a campground?
No.
Like just
No. That's another thing that was crazy to me, because like camping as a kid with your family, usually like we were always in a tent, sometimes in a pop-up. Like I just remember having like so much space, and where people live at like RV parks is different than a campground. Like where we are now is an RV park. There's like 2 tent spots, but the spot we were at before, we had like, I mean, we could barely go out the front door if we had a neighbor, which typically we have someone next to us on the weekends. So we just moved to a really spacious spot, which is nice. But for the most part, you have like a little tiny area, and that's it. So
for sure.
It's not glamorous. I always try to tell people like it's fun and it's cool to live in a camper, but it's not. We do it because it saves us money and we have our own home with us. It's not really like if it wasn't for the money and for us having a dog, we probably wouldn't do it.
Okay, so I did RV trips growing up. My family has an RV. So long term, because we'd only go for like a week, maybe 2 weeks in the RV because it was really old. Ours was from the 70s. They actually still have it at my parents' barn. But yeah, I don't think it runs right now or anything, but it's still kind of fun. But showering was always like kind of like one of those things where they had a shower in the RV, but I feel like we always showered at the campground we're staying at. Is that what you guys do too? Or have you guys figured out how to make it work in your camper?
Well, the shower and the bathroom were one thing that we renovated in the Airstream. And so we just used
Okay.
a stock tank that you buy we got it at Tractor Supply Co. That's a free ad.
Like a galvanized tub.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a galvanized stock tank. It's like 4 feet by 2 feet, and we painted it with white leak seal, and then put like a shower curtain with a curtain rod above it, and that was our shower in the back, the very back of the camper. And so that in Texas, we had snow a couple days where we were in Texas. So that stock tank would get extremely cold on our feet. And when you're showering every morning or every night, that was one of my least favorite things about living in the Airstream was using that shower.
Okay.
So it was a big relief when we got this camper because it's a normal sized stand-up shower in our bathroom. There's plenty of room. It's tall enough for both of us. We're both under 6 feet, so it's not like we have to lean down and do anything for that. But it's much more comfortable in this one. So I will say the biggest upgrade for this camper, aside from space, is that the shower feels like a normal shower. But the one that we had, we pieced it together and it worked. It was fine, but it wasn't ideal.
We used the campground showers in Texas. That was when we were still like getting everything together for our bathroom in the camper, because we moved with the camper like half done basically.
90% done.
And I didn't. Potato. I didn't mind using the campground bathroom. Like, most of them are pretty clean. I haven't checked out the ones here. We have some friends who traveled here at my building that lived in a van, and they used the showers at this campground, and it wasn't bad. But I just found that it almost felt like college, like where you can't go into the bathroom without like having to talk to someone and like, so in the morning when I'm getting ready for work, like I don't really want to talk to a stranger in the bathroom about like work and stuff. So it's nice to not have to go use a public shower, but it's doable.
Yes.
You could do it, but I didn't mind like our janky shower in the Airstream, but Ryley's a little more particular than I am. So.
Yeah, that would be my thing, because again, I like traveling in the RV, but I don't love using the public showers and stuff as much. So the fact that you guys have gotten that figured out, and you can have your own space, right? If you're doing it long term, having to constantly use public showers or whatever would be, for me, that'd be a letdown, And so that's awesome that you guys have kind of figured it out to make it work within your own space. So something else we kind of wanted to get into, I know you touched on being in Northern California, and I think traveling in Northern California is like the most fantastic place. I always tell people that you can kind of get the most bang for your buck up there. I feel like you can still make really high travel prices, or as far as like what you're making on an assignment, and you can usually find housing that's a little bit more reasonable. So I definitely wanted to talk to you guys about that today. What kind of like initially drew you guys to going to California, and where are you guys located now and all that good stuff?
Definitely because it was still the height of COVID when we moved here. We were kind of just like waiting it out to see where jobs were, and everything was popping up in California. And I've wanted to go to California forever. Like the farthest west I had ever been was Texas before we started traveling. So I was like, I want to go all the way. I want to hit the West Coast. So we decided to go there because like all the jobs were in California. And when we were talking to our recruiter, she was like, well, there's a lot of jobs in Northern California, but a lot of people, when they think California, they think Southern California, and that's where they want to go. And we were like, we don't care. Like, we just want to be in California and have a job. So mostly we started out in Central California, which is really, that's where like all of the fruit and vegetables I think in the US are grown. Like it was very agricultural, like lots of farms and stuff. Like you'd be driving to work and there's like a truck in front of you with tomatoes just like flying off of it, and like onions and stuff on the side of the road. Like it was crazy. There's just like fruits and vegetables everywhere. But we worked our way up to Northern California. And I think the biggest draw of Northern California is there's just way less people here compared to everywhere else in the state. 'Cause coming from Maine, like we're used to there being not very many people around. So when you get towards the southern part of the state, like that's where everybody is. But I think Northern California, there's definitely way more jobs here. It's cheaper to live here, and the pay is typically pretty good because there's a lot more like rural areas, I think.
Okay. And what part of California are you guys in now then?
We're in Lakeport, so
Lakeport?
it's kind of near the coast, like an hour and a half from the coast, I'd say. Like the Mendocino, Fort Bragg area. Yeah. So it's
okay.
they call it it's like mini Tahoe. We live on a lake, lots of mountains. It's pretty nice. Yeah.
That's awesome. Because you guys, I've had people that have traveled, some of my therapists have traveled there, and that's a little bit inland, right?
Yeah. Like I said, I think it's like an hour and a half, hour 45 from the coast.
Okay.
It's definitely, it's not, it's a poorer area. So that's why we came here. We took like a year-long contract essentially. Because we were having difficulty finding 2 travel assignments during COVID, and our main objective is paying off loans. So we kind of hit the sweet spot of we're in a rural area where we can get paid well, but also we're in Northern California, so there's tons of stuff around to still explore. And I'm of the mindset of I still consider us travelers because we're still in a new place where we're experiencing new things. So it's definitely it has its ups and downs in this part of California for sure, but yeah, I've been having a good time here.
That's awesome. I love Northern California. I just think it's like the most beautiful. I think, San Diego's beautiful too, right? Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But there's something just like majestic, I think, about Northern California that like a lot of people, when they go to California, if they're just going to fly there or whatever, they go to San Francisco, LA, San Diego, and they miss kind of these beautiful parts that you only kind of get to if you drive a lot of times, I feel like. So, as far as like the culture, how would you describe the culture in Northern California?
Northern California is a lot more laid back than Southern California, I think. I don't know. We haven't been to Southern California yet, but just kind of what we've heard, it's more of like a beachier, warmer weather, like paradise kind of vibe down in Southern California. But in Northern California, it's more woodsy and outdoorsy. That's kind of, but like where we are, we're within 2 to 3 hours of any of those kinds of places. Like we can go to the beach. We can go to San Francisco in less than 3 hours. We could go to Yosemite in 4.5 hours. We could go to Big Sur, or Mendocino. What is it? The forest?
Oh, like the Avenue of Giants. Like, we're around like all the redwoods. I guess I'd just say it's more like rugged. Like people are more outdoorsy, granola, like that kind of thing, which is more our vibe. So that's why we like it here. So it's definitely more like,
for sure.
And people are, like we said, we've never been to Southern California, but people are really friendly in Northern California, very helpful, which, coming from me, I grew up in the South, so everyone's like, everywhere else, people are just rude. Like, only people in the South are super nice. And so I go other places, I'm like, other people are nice here too. Like, it's so refreshing. Because you grow up in the South and they're like, no one's as hospitable as Southerners. But we've had, like, truly, like, like everyone we've met here has been just so nice. And yeah, the vibe is really good in Northern California. If you're into outdoorsy things, like it's definitely the place for you.
That's awesome. And you're close to the redwoods. I think those are so beautiful too. So that's awesome.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So outside of work, when you guys aren't working, maybe weekends and that type of thing, what do you guys like to go do for fun? Do you guys go explore? Do you guys have like certain things you like to do?
We've gone to Yosemite 5-6 times.
Yeah, we're
really going like this hiking. Weekend. So
you like it?
Oh yeah, we've been there all the time. We go north of us is where the Avenue of the Giants is, so we've driven that a couple times and shown friends and new people that we've worked with and everything. We'll go there with them and check that out. We go to Monterey a lot, which is only I think that's about 3 hours away too. That's a really nice coastal area that kind of reminds me of coastal Maine, which I'm from northern Maine, so I'm further from the coast in Maine than we are where we live right here. So that's like,
oh, okay.
That's like the cool areas of Maine. They're all in the south and far away from where I grew up. But here it's nice. You kind of get like all these different types of places you can go to, all within 3 to 5 hours away, which it is a long drive on the weekends sometimes, but to have that accessible where it's so different, you can hike. You could go we've done a backpacking trip that was 24 miles one weekend, and then we've gone and done a couple different 2 to 3 mile hikes in Tahoe a few times with friends, and stayed in an Airbnb in Tahoe and had like a big group of people all together and hanging out and everything. Well, 6 or 7 of us, but
yeah,
there's a lot of different things that you can do in this area that's within drivable distances for the weekend at least. And then you get, a couple new friends together and everything and hang out in these really nice places. Then it's really great. It's fun on the weekends. And even during the week, we have the lake right next to us where we live. So we've gone on the kayaks on it once, but
in the summer it gets, California, for everyone else in the world, California is in a perpetual drought, and the lake that we live on is like slowly shrinking. And so in the summer it gets really like smelly and algae-y, so it's not as fun to kayak on.
Okay.
But we like I do triathlon, so like we have another lake that's spring fed like 15 minutes from us, so like I'll go swim and Ryley will kayak next to me, and we can do that during the week, which is awesome. We do CrossFit in this area. We love CrossFit. We have a really awesome community with our gym there, because as a traveler it's hard to plug in to the area that you're in, and CrossFit that's something we'll be able to do when we start traveling again, is we'll have a group of people there. But we're just really into, every weekend we're pretty much in the car driving somewhere new, hiking, drinking coffee in new places, beer in new places. We like it all. We've been lucky that the building I'm at has a lot of travelers come through, so we meet a lot of new people and constantly are adventuring with just like new friends that we make. So it's been really awesome.
That's awesome. I feel like as an adult, sometimes it can be challenging to make new friends. I know that sounds weird, but you look at people when you're in college and stuff, you're in like friend making mode. And then you're like an adult and you're like at a bar or something and the bartender's cool. And you're like, do you want to be friends? Is this weird? You can't really say that, but you're like, we could be friends. This could be fun. But anyway, that's what I just love about the traveler mentality. You like meet other travelers, they're like-minded individuals, and you're like, you're cool. We're cool. Let's hang out. That's really all you have to do.
Which is great. We've been super lucky. Like, actually, we've met like this other couple through, there was an OT that was traveling in my building, and they're also from Minnesota. And she, like, one day she was talking about how she lives in a van, and she heard me talking about how I live at a campground, and she was like, "What campground do you live at?" And we both were living at the same campground. We had no idea. So then we started hanging out more, and her boyfriend and Ryley have so much in common. They're like basically the same person. And then her and I have a lot in common. So we've made these like lifelong friends, which as a couple is like really hard to do, to like meet another couple that you really like being around. So it's crazy. Like travel has afforded us, like, we've met these new friends, and luckily they're like in the same region as us. So we meet up with them. Like we're going to try to hike Half Dome with them this weekend. And I have a friend from college who's traveling, and her husband, and they happen to be like in the same area. So we meet up with them, and it's just cool because, yeah, like you feel like when you leave college, it's like you don't have that anymore. It's that awkward. It is awkward. It's just like, I'm a grown up, like people just assume you have your own life, and that's just, you have your own bubble and that's it. So, but I'm a very like extroverted person. So I'm always like, be my friend, everyone be my friend. But Ryley is a little more withdrawn than I am. So it's hard sometimes for us to find new friends, but it's been so great with travel. I think it's, everyone kind of has the same vibe of like just trying to meet new people, and it's been really awesome.
Yeah, that's so great. And would you say like overall travel has been like a good experience for you guys? Are you glad you did it? Like other than just the money aspect, like in general, like the lifestyle and kind of what you guys have been able to do. Are you guys glad you've been able to travel?
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Like, whenever we talk about like all the hardships that we've had with it, I mean, like, I think it's important to talk about the things that are a struggle too, because I think it's really easy to, like, when we first started, you know, when you're looking at Instagram and you see all these people who are traveling, and, you know, even on our Instagram, I try really hard not to be like, everything is perfect and it always works out and we just love our lives so much. And we do love our lives, but there's really hard stuff that comes with traveling, especially the kind of travel we do in our camper. But I think for the most part, like when something hard comes our way now, we're so much more flexible. And like if you'd have seen Hannah and Ryley from 2 years ago when we first started traveling, when something bad happens, you know, like it was like the world is crumbling, everything's going wrong, how are we going to make it through this? To now we're like, oh, well, that's just another speed bump and we'll get through it because we've done it before. And we're just way more flexible now than we were before.
That's awesome. I'm so appreciative of you guys coming on and chatting with us and telling us all about your Airstream in California. And you guys are just great. So thank you for coming on. And yeah, I hope everything goes great on your travels in the future.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
And that brings us to the end of the show. Thanks for tuning in to I Need Travel Therapy. To learn more about today's episode, make sure to explore the show notes at medtravelers.com/I Need Travel Therapy. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a guest. If you're a therapist interested in traveling, visit medtravelers.com to explore nationwide travel therapy job offerings and to learn about the amazing benefits that MedTravelers has to offer. Also, a very special thanks to producer Jonathan Carey, assistant producers Katie Schraubin and Sam McKay, and Aiden Dykes for the music and editing. See you next time, Travel Fam.